Hey, Mistakes listeners, this is Dave coming right back at you. I know that we actually missed an episode this week, but with a summer schedule like Todd and I's, it's kind of hard to actually sometimes tap down and or sit down and actually record an episode. But we've got a good one for you this week. We actually watched a little show called The Odd Squad, PBS's Odd Squad, and we'll have to actually listen to us to find out what we feel about it, or think about it for that matter. Feeler, Dave, Thinker, Todd. We recorded this episode on 8/26/2015. This would be episode 18. Now, we do actually have some social networking out there. We've got a Twitter account. You can follow us on Twitter at Parent Mistakes. We also have Facebook. You can follow us on Facebook at Parenting Mistakes. Todd and I would love to hear your feedback, any comments or suggestions. Heck, if you even write us an email that we can possibly put on the air, that would be fantastic. Suggestions, recommendations, we are always looking for recommendations as to what we should be watching. Anyway, glad to have you back with us, and sit back and enjoy the show. Todd, so... hi. That's all I
Hi,
get?
that's my name.
Yeah. Well. Okay. First, obviously we're a little bit late, obviously, in getting this week's episode out, and that is because hey, we've been busy dudes, right? Like, I'm assuming you're busy, right? Are you busy? I mean, you already had your.
Yeah, very busy. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We are real parents, by the way. We're not making this up.
Oh my word! Yeah, totally. I mean, it's crazy.
Maybe people don't believe us that we're actually parents, but yes, we have children.
Oh, yeah, last week I actually experimented for the first time on commuting with two different locations and two different schools with little girls all over the place, and not saying it was nutty. I actually felt kind of, how should I say this? I felt accomplished about it because I'm a stay-at-home dad and everything went really well.
That's
But
good.
here's the trippy thing. Do you know the beginning of the Jetsons, the show opener for the Jetsons? Because I think it's applicable here at Parenting Mistakes to talk about
I
the Jetsons.
do have a general, yes,
Okay,
understanding
so
of that.
I believe George is actually in the little hover car that goes around Space City. Please forgive me. What city do they actually...
I don't know. That's a good question.
My wife asked me if I would actually drop her off at work. And it was actually the first day of school for my daughter and the first day of preschool for my other daughter. And literally, I was flying around like George Jetson in Seattle, basically dropping one girl off at work, giving her a kiss goodbye, down the tube, there she goes. I'm going down the road, another tit. Oh, there's another daughter kissing. Out, off to school, and then up down the road, down to preschool, down the tube, and I felt like the only way I could totally describe that was George Jetson, right? Except I didn't have a job. Except that was my job. I think
Yes.
At the end, George actually ends up going to Spacely Space Rockets.
He does.
Correct? Yes.
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 Okay.
Do you want me to assure you that it's going to get better? Because it's not.
You always say that.
I'm sorry.
Well, I felt really good about it. I did.
Well, I'm congratulations
and I'm
on
glad-
getting your children to their respective places.
Well, it's true. It's the future, right? I mean, we are living the Jetsons' life, right? Now we are more than ever. I often think about, because this has not happened to Mom and Pa Kettle, right? They didn't get in the stagecoach and drop people off at like 50 different locations. I think that morning I probably did about 18 miles. I know you do more living in L.A.
I do.
Right? But that for me, like 18 miles in 1821 would have been, well, we just homesteaded. Right? The Denny party just showed up in Seattle.
Exactly.
What an accomplishment. And now I do it like in like 20 minutes. It's crazy.
For the last 2 years, our family has been on 3 campuses.
Yes.
So now, this year, we are back down to 2 campuses.
Right.
So I have 2 kids at the high school, 1 kid at the elementary school.
Okay.
So we're back down to 2, which is nice.
So I thought your school was all in one centralized location. It's not that.
Well,
actually
it's
the case?
close.
Okay.
Like the middle school and the high school are right next to each other. The elementary school is a couple miles down the street, or
Gotcha.
a mile down the street.
Okay.
But still, you're still doing drop-offs and pickups.
Mm-hmm.
And when you add in between class and sports practice and that sort of thing.
I am also assuming you guys have worked out carpooling as well. Not only yours, but
some,
yeah.
but the hard part is that in this day and age, people are doing a lot of independent stuff.
Yeah.
Like you're trying to match up schedules, but also geography.
Yes.
So because my kids go to a private school, the people that send their kids there are all over the place.
Right.
And so carpooling just isn't a logistical possibility sometimes.
You wait, dude. You wait. About 2 weeks ago, they revealed the hoverboard, the actual hoverboard. I don't know if you actually saw
I've seen
this.
it, yes.
Okay. I granted, in 50 years, your kids and my kids will be actually shuttling between, say, L.A. and Seattle to get to that school in Portland.
Sure they will.
I'm hoping. So
I think you've been watching too much of the show that we are going to be talking about today because they
What,
have
the
some
Odd Squad?
Yes. How's that for a segue?
That was a perfect segue. I'm
Like
in
that?
it. Yeah.
All right.
Tell me about the Odd Squad, because
All right,
there's actually a lot to be told about, correct?
Oh, yeah, somewhat. The Odd Squad is it's on PBS, and you can find it on Netflix. We jump and grab a lot of our stuff off of Netflix because it's terribly convenient. It is currently in its first season, I believe. The second season starts in 2016, so it's going to be around for a little bit. It is much like a number of shows that we've watched where it has 2 stories in a half-hour slot, about 2 12 to 13-minute stories. So the basic plot is that it is a group of young agents, sort of secret agent type of deal, and they have to solve various quandaries in the neighborhood and around town. And as you would expect, because it's a PBS show, they use a lot of math and science and reasoning and lots of good solid education stuff to solve these little conundrums that they come across. Main characters, at least the episodes we watched, there's 2 sort of main agents, Olive and Otto. And I discovered this, I should have figured this out quickly, but apparently all the characters have names that start with O.
Oh, there you go.
Because we also meet the sort of the tech guy, sort of science guy that's got all the gadgets, sort of the Q branch from James Bond. That's Oscar.
With the little Bill Nye science guy, but more Q than Bill Nye. Well, yeah, right.
He's got the lab coat and the funny hair and stuff like that, and the glasses and that sort of thing. And then their boss is Miss O.
Miss O.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. That is the Odd Squad.
So I couldn't help, when I'm watching this show, I couldn't help but think that it's actually Fringe for kids. Have you actually watched any of Fringe?
No, I have not.
Yeah. The main character's name in Fringe is Olivia.
Okay.
Olivia. And basically Fringe is a group of people that are basically looking at crazy abstract science, or fringe science, right? And trying to solve what is happening in the world. And it's actually a serious drama. I loved it. And I couldn't help that this is the kids' version of Fringe, with a PBS bent, right? But it's very funny, right? It's over exaggerated, it's silly, it's funny. Did you like it?
I did.
Yeah.
And this is where it's always very interesting to compare, say, PBS to, say, the Disney Channel, to the Cartoon Network, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It just, if we watched shows without knowing what network they were on or who produced them, I want to say that we could identify them by their content.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very clean. It's very wholesome. There's I don't think there's a lot of sarcasm and snark. I mean, there's sort of, as you said, over dramatized. There are kids playing adults in some ways. So they sort of amp up their performances. And yeah, I liked it. And I also like the fact that we talked about this previously with Project MC Squared, where that one they sort of have, and I'll say the word science with quotes around it. The science that they have with that one is a combination of gadgets and them hanging around a science classroom. This one they actually do some math, they actually do some science, they do some reasoning, they do some very basic statistics when they're doing their surveys, that sort of thing. Again, it's all rudimentary stuff, but it's accessible.
So let's talk about. Let's just talk about the first episode. There's 2 episodes. I forgive me, but I also felt like just watching the entire half an hour, because I'm pretty sure that this is a half an hour with 2 segments, and it has multiple segments in it. It's almost a PBS variety show, because there's a lot of things happening throughout the episodes. I don't believe that one episode is actually separated from the other. It's pretty much just 2 segments, and then peppered in there are some other different segments. So first episode was based around
how to interrogate a unicorn.
Correct.
So the plot of this one is that various mythical or actually just fictional characters are popping out of books at the library and running around. And somehow they capture these, and they're trying to find the causal link, as it were. They're trying to find what these things have in common.
Right. And they're really different. One's a robot, one is actually a mummy, and one is actually a rainbow unicorn.
Yes.
Turns out there's a few more characters that show up later in the episode, too.
Yes. There's also a wizard later on, that sort of thing.
Yep.
But I like it because, again, you're talking about a show that actually sort of, gives them some deductive reasoning. I mean, again, it's simple. Now, this is, again, where we get into questions that we can't necessarily answer as parents. Are kids going to find this entertaining enough? It's easy for us to sort of sit back and go, oh, it's wonderful. It's a kid's show, but it's educational. Do the kids care? Would the kids watch this and go, okay, this is entertaining enough to keep me riveted to it? And I don't know. That's the hard thing.
So, okay, so I'm always of the entertainment bent, right? Again, I found that all of the kids were actually extremely likable, and again, they've done their due diligence in finding some actors. Like, I feel like all of them can act, and that's always compelling. I think that's always compelling to kids. I think kids go, oh, I see that. They're really, really doing it. I am sure that if my daughters could watch this particular show, which they just haven't found it or I haven't directed them to that, I think they would find it very engaging. There's another similar show called Dino Dan that's on Nick Jr., and he's very inquisitive. He's kind of exaggerated, but he's smart, and he's leading the kids down a road that's interesting. And in his case, it's dinosaurs, but in this case, it's science, and I do find it intriguing. I think so. There were a couple things that I kind of had a hard time with, though, and that is I found some of the scenarios kind of disturbing. Some of their solutions I didn't care for. So, and I know what you're saying is like there's some deductive reasoning and stuff, but for the sake of some humor or some sight gags, as an adult, I just felt on edge about it. For example, there's a guy at the beginning of the episode in which he says, every time I speak, there's a laugh track. Right? Every time I speak, I just hear a bunch of people laughing, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's a terrible problem. And the kids kind of try to deduct how to resolve the issue. And the issue they come up with, they do tell them, we don't have a solution for your problem. Like, I can't remember how they said it, like, we just don't have this thing available for you. But
right.
What you can do is you can put headphones on so that when you speak, you can't hear the laugh track. But ultimately, it's not a really good solution. I actually hated that solution. I'm like, They're there to help people, and they didn't really help the guy, because at the end of that little segment, he is basically he's basically saying, I can't hear the laugh track anymore, yet I can't hear anything else.
Correct.
Not a solution. Now, is it funny? Yeah, it's funny, but I wish that it had gone in a different direction. The other part of this first episode I didn't like is that they actually meet up with the author of all of these books, right? To try to deduce, like, why are all these creatures going crazy in the library? Well, they decide that the creatures are going crazy because somebody's just overthinking, or what is it, their creative juices are just, what was it, over-exaggerated?
Yes, it was. It was all coming from Oscar.
They had a term from it. Yeah, it comes from Oscar, but they think it's actually coming from the author. And so basically they give her this hat that is supposed to subdue her creative juices so that her books won't go crazy when she writes them. And the adult immediately, of course, submits to this plan and is actually being shocked by this hat. Like, they put this hat on her head and she's being shocked. And I'm like, again, I found it a little bit disturbing. These are some of the red flags that I had from this particular episode. There are two issues right there that I felt like were unresolved. Like, these are problem solvers, and yet their solutions aren't always the best options, in my opinion. I wish they'd thought it out a little bit better, or instead of having this poor woman be shocked for the rest of her life, they actually come up with a better solution. Or does that mean that they're prohibiting her creative thinking? Like, maybe I'm overthinking this, Todd. Help me.
I think you're overthinking that one.
Yeah.
I can understand the not coming up with a solution. I guess that doesn't bother me as much because it almost humanizes them in some ways, as if to sort of say, okay, they can't solve all the problems.
I suppose maybe that's my problem here, because usually I'm so used to, like, right, so again, if you watch any Mickey Mouse Clubhouse or any of the Disney shows, there's always a perfect resolve every single time. And for the Odd Squad, there isn't. And I think
but there is at the end. There is,
but some of the solutions along the way were terrible.
No, but you noticed at the beginning of the second little mini episode, they did the exact same thing. With the guy that would go upstairs. He'd go up the stairs, and then all of a sudden he'd reappear at the bottom of the stairs again.
I was going to get to that again, too. And now that's another sight gag, right? But they haven't resolved his problem, right?
But they didn't. They solved his problem by really creating a different problem.
Correct.
Because then they put him on the elevator, and then there's two of him.
And he's perpetually stuck in Groundhog Day for the rest of his life. Thanks, Odd Squad. You know, I'm like, ah! Yeah, I don't know if kids would get that. You know, there's just some unresolvable things. Now, I mean, we all agree the reason we like the original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is because there's a bunch of disturbing things, right?
Yes.
We don't know what happened to the kid that fell into the lake or river of chocolate, right? We don't know what happened to the girl that turned into a giant blueberry, right? There's just all these disturbing things that happen, and I think Odd Squad has a little bit of that in it.
Well, I have to imagine, again, this is me guessing a little bit. I wonder if PBS still sort of looks at their shows and says, all right, we're PBS, people are going to look at us as Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers. They're going to look at us as vanilla content.
Mm-hmm.
We still have to market our shows and try to get kids to watch, particularly in a crowded marketplace of kids shows. And so, if anything, maybe they're going to say, all right, we're not going to do anything gross or raunchy or inappropriate, but maybe we can do something that's just kind of off the wall.
Sure. And disturbing.
Well,
I'm going to go with disturbing, Todd. I'm sorry.
I didn't find it disturbing.
I did. I found it disturbing. I felt so. I'm an emotional being. So
are you worried about that if a kid watches this and says, "Hey, you didn't fix their problem," or do you think a kid is going to watch it and go, "Ah, that's funny. He's got earmuffs on the rest of his life"?
As a kid, I would have felt off about it. There are actually lots of things at Sesame Street that made me feel weird.
Okay.
That were like a little bit disturbing, and I don't want to get into that tonight. But there are things in this show that I find disturbing. The fact that guy didn't have any resolve in the elevator, for example, is not cool. right? But at the same time, it's like that's the kind of thing that the Odd Squad deals with. And they are kids trying to resolve issues, right? For
Correct.
adults, mind you. Again, not an adult in sight. They're all kids running this this Odd Squad.
Well, and because of the format and because of the sort of, as you said, there's sort of one big episode, but there's sort of a couple different stories. You get the impression that they're all sort of running around, and maybe they come back. Because like the second one, the guy, is it occurs to the guy that his problem has not been solved.
Right.
And so he yells for them to come back. And then instead of them coming
they
back,
left him hanging.
well, we don't know. They cut to the opening credits, so maybe they did come back and solve his problem.
I don't think they did, dude.
You can't leave. You can't lose
I
sleep
think
over
that
this.
guy right now is
Let it go.
He is still going up and down
He's
that
still
elevator.
going up and down. Maybe he's multiplying every time. Like he keeps getting in the elevator, and then there's 2, and then there's 4, and it just keeps multiplying all the way up.
So
You never know.
So moving on to the briefcase, there's also that little inner segment. Can you repeat the name of the kid that's the scientist kid?
It's Oscar.
Oscar. Okay. So he did a little segment in between episodes in which he kind of says it was which of these things doesn't belong, right? Or what it was not that. Please forgive me. It was basically what's the difference between this one creature and the other?
Right.
Right? So he showed a drawing of one creature and the other. And what I didn't like about that, or I had a time with it, is that actually in a lot of other shows they give chances for kids to actually guess. And he just gave you the answers. He just went straight for the answers.
So you want more of a Blue's Clues type of thing?
Gone are the days of picture pages. Dare I say anything about
yourself.
Bill Cosby. But I remember picture pages and going, I have to resolve the issue, right? Now, ultimately, Bill is going to do something for me, right? But
Right.
he's going to give me a chance to resolve, and Oscar did not. He just went straight for the kill shot, and here's the resolve. I'm just going to fix it for you. There wasn't a chance for kids to actually kind of think about it and do it. Because I've watched, say, a lot of Dora with my daughters, and Dora will actually pause. And you've seen this.
Yes.
Dora pauses, and then the kids are like, jump, jump, jump. And then Dora says, yes, I want to jump, jump, jump. Oscar didn't do that.
Well,
Right.
I guess the question is, what age group do you think they're targeting? If they're targeting little kids, then yes. If they're targeting, say,
Then why are they even doing this segment? Is it just filler?
pre-adolescents, I don't know. And
Yeah.
this is sort of a transitional show, I feel like, in terms of age groups. Like
So
you could
this
go
is-
a little younger, but
Okay, so just cut to the chase, Give me the answer. I'm sick of it. Just give me a calculator. I don't have to figure this out. Why add 2 + 2 when I can do it on a computer, right?
well, maybe they just felt like they were running out of time, so they had to keep it moving along. Hurry up, Oscar. You got to go faster.
So I liked the second episode, The Briefcase, a whole lot more than I liked the first episode. This was the redemptive episode for me, for sure. Why? Because basically they've got a briefcase that needs to be... It's a MacGuffin, right? They've got to get this briefcase to their boss, and there's a villain who's actually going after the briefcase. Who knows why? The villain thinks it's, obviously something valuable, right? And they've got
Yes.
to basically get that briefcase, but the villain keeps taking it away from them. Now, the subplot of it is the villain keeps on transforming it into a different object, but whatever that object is, be it a feather, be it whatever, is going to weigh the same as the briefcase was. So they do a lot of weights and measures,
Yes.
which I thought, finally, this is a scientific, this is good application. My kids could walk away with something here, for sure.
Yes.
And I actually found it interesting, right? And they goof it up with the objects that they use to weigh.
Yeah, and I liked that part. I'm actually the opposite on this episode. This episode bored me.
That's funny. Really? I thought the
Yeah.
special effects were better in this episode, for
Uh,
sure. The villain
no.
was actually entertaining.
No, see, I found the villain to be just sort of
You're
annoying.
wrong. You're wrong.
Well, this is again a dilemma. This is a thing where we sort of say, okay, do we want our kids to see characters that are believable and legitimate? Like I found the villain was not really a villain. It was more just kind of this very benign, non-threatening, weird-looking annoyance.
creepy looking, disturbing.
Yeah, it wasn't truly a villain. I mean, they never really identified what it was, why it was. It had sort of this Tron-like suit with all these little symbols on it,
Right.
and it was just kind of weird. Now, again, it's pretty low key because, again, it's PBS. So you're not going to have a character that's truly sinister and truly evil and truly going to be doing things that are, putting the kids at risk.
Right.
But at the same time, I was sort of like, all right, this is pretty weak. But, as a kid, maybe they look at that and go, wow, they're funny looking. They're all blue. They glow. That's cool.
What's wrong with you?
No. A lot of things, but we don't have time to get into that.
Yeah, that's right.
We don't have that long of a podcast.
That's right.
I would agree with you that, and the science and the math that they use, and it's very good, solid stuff, and it's very accessible.
Yes.
It's very good for the kids to look at and sort of say, all right,
and
I can wrap my brain around what they're doing here.
And the Odd Squad, as kids, are actually doing it, right?
Yes.
And they're using their they're using their brains to do it. So actually, again, so obviously we had different opinions on it.
But I like the show. I mean, it just it's again where you get into the situation where what do you look for from a show? Are you looking at it in terms of content? Are you looking at it in terms of plot? Or are you saying, all right, this is a formula. We have an unresolved, goofy scenario at the beginning. Then we have this, presented scenario. Then they're going to do a little math and science, and then it's going to wrap up.
Yeah, and, could I say that maybe possibly here, too, that PBS actually starts out with, how do we do a weights and measures episode? And then everything is built around that. And that is the strongest thing that I can say about this particular show. I can't say that the science is always solid, but deductive reasoning is actually obviously a big priority for this show. And so they could sit down and say, hey, let's do measurement next week, right? Or we're going to do, what would be another science thing?
I'll do like gravity or something like that.
Thank you. Something like that, right? Yeah. And I think that's what they think of first, and then the rest of the episode is just kind of fleshed around that. And I love that.
Yes. Again,
great characters. I highly recommend this show.
Yeah, I would too. And, I don't know what age group. I think it's pretty benign in a lot of ways. I mean, there are certain characters that maybe a younger kid wouldn't necessarily latch onto. I mean, the first episode we talked about has a mummy that's sort of growling, and there's a wizard, and there's, a strange alien and stuff like that. So I don't want to say that those are scary, but, that you could throw that into sort of the high-rated G type content.
What's scary is there's a dude out there that's constantly wearing earphones that can't hear anymore because the Odd Squad solution was for him to be deaf. Just let me be point blank with you on that. All right? What's scary is there's some dude out there. Am I
going to have to start singing "Let It Go" from Frozen?
He is riding an elevator perpetually forever because that's the Odd Squad solution for them, or he didn't return.
But I will remind you.
They didn't return, sorry.
That's correct. Well, no. First of all, the guy at the beginning with the headphones is actually satisfied with his solution. He actually seems happy with this because the laugh track is now gone. And secondly, the second guy does call for them, so maybe they do come back and we just don't get to see that.
Yeah.
So there you go. I'm going to defend it.
I can't, but there you go.
There you go. Odd Squad.
Odd Squad.
Check it out.
Yes. Definitely.
Yes.
Hey,
we can relate to it because we are an odd squad in and of ourselves. So.
You're a little bit more odd than I am.
At times, yes.
But yes, we are the odd squad for sure.
We are.
Ooh, I just think I figured out our caption for this week.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Excellent. So follow us, please, online. Parent Mistakes on Twitter, if you're a Twitter person. Or follow us on Facebook, Parenting Mistakes. And seriously, we would love to hear feedback. Any kind of feedback. You like us, you don't like us, what we should change, what we should keep the same.
We'll even read it on the show.
We will. If you don't want to be, we'll protect your identity and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Bob McGee from Idaho.
Yes, we would love to read fan mail in a future episode.
Yes. It's going to happen.
Provide us with content. It
I
will.
promise you.
Yes.
Heck, if we even get a complaint on iTunes, I'll read
Oh,
it.
yeah, we would love to have a complaint. We love complaints. Complain away. Complain.
All right. Well, I think that's it for this week, correct?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, see you